Good afternoon, non existent audience. Welcome to another open chat. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. Before we get into it, folks, just apologizing in general for my appearance, but in my defense, trigger warning, we curse on this channel on occasion. It's cold as fuck outside, all right? We're talking -1. So, not trying to be a fashion plate this afternoon. I'm just trying to stay warm. All right, as usual, before people start coming in slowly, because I always prepare everything last minute to talk about the woes of call center life, right? Right. So, January, if you work call center sales, is one of the worst months, bar none, when you are on the phones, because you're usually getting one of three calls. They either want you to magically make the sale that they saw just a few weeks ago magically manifest again. And if you can't, then they want to speak with a manager. They want a special promo code because I'm a good customer. So are the other millions of customers who order every single day. They didn't get promo codes. Nobody gets special treatment. You get those guys. Or number three, they want to do returns. So the question becomes, how then does a manager of a team try to hype people up in order to, rejuvenate them? In my experience, it is to hammer down and demand nonsensically, repeatedly, why your numbers are not the same as they were the previous month, in spite of the fact that they well know that there was Black Friday where I was busting my ass 13, 14, 15-hour shifts with no days in between. Oh, no, no, no. Obviously, I was doing something miraculous that I am no longer doing now. And the reason why my numbers don't look the same obviously has to be my fault. That is call center life, folks, especially if you're in call center sales. If you want to know why call center sales is always hiring, it's because it's a high turnover job. The reason why, folks, is nobody handles that constant pressure all the time very well. Okay? The few of us that do and stick to it for several years is generally because we really don't have that much of another choice. Right? But anyways, tired of complaining about that. I am happy to have the job that I have in order to be able to work from home. And these guys have certainly treated me better than any single other call center I have ever worked in my lifetime. So I don't want to give them too hard of a time. I just find it nonsensical if you're in higher management over a sales team and then you're going to bust one of your best sellers because their numbers dropped significantly from what they were previously because of the fact of where those numbers came from is the sales that were going on at the time. January, understandably, is one of the most dry months when it comes to sales, bar none, because there's no sales going on. There's no incentive for these folks to buy. So, January generally sucks. February speeds things up a bit because all of a sudden everybody wants to start getting ready for spring. It's just how it is. It wasn't bad, cement shoes, wasn't bad at all. I spent New Year's Eve working and the night afterwards I should say my call center weekend afterwards is when I got to have some lovely pork chops and some potatoes and green beans, which was awesome. So that went actually went rather lovely. And it was nice to get away from the drama for a while, which for some reason, in spite of the fact that I have blocked and muted people left, right, forward, and center, somehow the drama still seems to find me like the unwelcome guest at a holiday function. Granted, you can always sit there and say, well, just don't get involved. Let me explain. I'm autistic, and when you keep slamming something in my face day after day after day after day after day, eventually I'm going to snap. It is what it is, you know? All right. Cement shoes on here. I still remember getting carped at for low sales after 9/11. Oh my God. This is where we are now, folks. And what I've always found interesting, and maybe I only find it interesting because I'm not neurotypical, but something I seem to notice is after any kind of something messed up gets displayed across the news, all of a sudden I get a volley of calls to buy, of all things, fire pits, patio equipment. It's crazy. It's crazy, folks. And it's usually also when the racism tends to rev up. You would think that that would be racism towards the Middle East. No, no, folks. The primary racist comments that I get on the daily is against Asians. I shit you not. Day after day, call after call. Uh, when I was on the phones last Sunday, I got a volley of calls. But is it made in China? Because I don't want the Chinese like Jesus Christ. Here we go again. No, it's made from Japan. That's just as bad. And you got to be nice to these people. That's my difficulty because I tend to be extremely blunt. So holding my tongue and not going off on these individuals gets extremely difficult after a certain period of time. All right, folks. So we are 8 minutes in. And so now I feel this is a relatively good time to let you know what the update is in regards to the JRC, which comes to me as quite a bit of a shock, like mind numbing, me staring blankly at my computer screen for a good solid 2 to 3 minutes because I can't believe the audacity, the absolute audacity of what it was that I was seeing. So we all know about the fact that the JRC and FDA were at loggerheads early 2000s and 2010s, right? And how I've been hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering on why the FDA has yet to go back in, correct their mistake, name the machine, and resend the goddamn ban and do it again. But now my question finally has an answer. And it has completely blew my damn mind. Now, I did not save the whole article because they want me to pay for it. And just now, sorry. Some of us broke bitches, all right? Especially right after Christmas. And though I obviously do well for myself, that money's kind of earmarked for this wonderful thing called utilities. Amen, cement shoes. And when they give me a list of avowed atheists to call, can I be please certain that these are the individuals who are pretty much along the lines of shut up and take my money? That would be great. But back to the topic at hand. The answer as to why the FDA has not submitted the ban of the GED device again and why that original ban has not been rewritten. Whew, I'm about to show you why. I wonder if it's going to be as mind blowing to you as it happens to be to me. Because, God, the audacity of these bastards. Okay, we're going to share screen. And again, I did not save the entirety of these articles, and the reason being it costs money, and yeah. All right, so forget all the downloading. What I want you to take a look at here is this specifically. Massachusetts facility using once barred shock devices sues the FDA. Look, this is coming from January 10th. This is just 6 days ago, folks. This is extremely recent. And although we're not going to read the whole article, what they got here in like kind of the fading lettering, we're going to go ahead and read. Okay. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center is suing the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for allegedly flouting federal open records laws and adding that the agency worked to resurrect its ban on the electric shock harnesses. Yeah. So, do you believe this shit? Sorry, I know I'm cursing, but do you believe that shit? The JRC is never just happy with a win. Like most abusers, no, they have to annihilate those who come against them. They have the significant unlimited resources in order to be able to do so. An unprecedented amount of power. Like, I have never seen a small school that utilizes that much power and has that much capital at hand to do the things that they do. It is literally mind-bogglingly batshit insane. Not even Rivendell out here, a school that is significantly larger and accepts a larger population of autistic students that are out in my area, brings in the types of funding, the lobbying power and influence over politicians in the same way that the JRC does. It is insane. And you know what the saying is. That power has gone to JRC's head. It's gone to its head a long time ago. But to actually have the balls to sue a federal department, not just sue them, but sue them in regards to your own torture device, a device that has already been widely condemned by some of the largest providers of services to disabled people in the United States. We're talking Easter Seals, we're talking ARC, people who've been around far longer than the JRC has and have served millions, probably billions at this point, of consumers over a period of multiple decades. Yet this one little place somehow has so much political pull, so much monetary resources that somehow they are emboldened to sue a wing of the federal government. I don't know. What do you all think on this? I think it's a silencing tactic, honestly. It is definitely not within the JRC's best interests to have to spend all that money to fight the FDA again in regards to their device. You know, the one that tortures people, sends people into 2-month catatonia. You know, that device. The second and third degree burns, the removal of feeling in the nerves in the areas where the electrodes are stuck on those kids. That device. The JRC wants to punish the FDA. They essentially want to create an environment of such fear, and when it comes to coming up against them, that nobody will dare it again. This is a statement. But they may have bit off something far larger than they can chew, because these folks have been protected within both federal and state governments for decades. Way more than even some of these troubled teen industry schools, even more than that. And remember, I live in the area of Agape, where all the local MAGA politicians were circling around and protecting that school in spite of the abuse, the child trafficking, the sex abuse going on there. And still, they weren't protected near as much as the JRC is. It is mind blowing, literally mind blowing. See, cement shoes here. They really are. Like, this school cultivates almost a cult like atmosphere amongst not the students, but the parents of the students. I hope to God, cement shoes, you're right. I hope this is the straw that breaks the camel's back in regards to all the federal and state protection that the JRC has had access to for all these years. I hope that for once their pride gets them in some serious shit, because this place has needed a federal investigation done decades before they even started with the GED device. How you can look at the death of literally 6 students before the shock device was ever introduced and continue a school like that to continue to go on. I am hoping against hope, because I'm nihilist and I'm cynical as hell. I can't help it. It's how I was raised in the very fucked up world I grew up in, and it just keeps getting worse, especially if you're disabled. It's mind blowing to me that they think this move is going to be a good idea. Because to anyone watching who gives half a damn, yes, even the media, and I don't trust those bastards as far as I can throw them, but nonetheless, even they might start seeing this as the silencing tactic it very obviously is. On one hand, they want to punish the FDA. I believe that. These are vindictive bastards who have engaged in more shady behavior that I could ever, I believe, actually vocalize. On the other hand, It's a silencing tactic. They don't want to have to try and fight the FDA again in regards to the merits of the so-called device, because at the end of the day, as we get further and further down the line from when those devices were first introduced, it becomes more and more apparently nonsensical that these barbaric tactics are still being utilized and a blind eye continues to be turned towards it. You get what I'm saying? Don't look at the man behind the curtain. But the fact of the matter is, all those other treatment programs are no longer new. They've been around for decades now, and they have the data and the stats to back up what they tell you in regards to the successes they have seen in their consumers on these treatment programs. It wouldn't even be the same fight that it was in 2014 through 2016 and on while the hearings with the FDA were going on. We've got some more mileage on those treatment programs that were still relatively new in regards to mental health and treating neurodivergent kids and people with mental health issues. But now we've got some mileage on those treatment programs. Millions of kids have been through or are currently on those treatment programs who are, as they would say, just as quote unquote severe as the kids at the JRC. The math wasn't mathing back in the 80s, but now the math is really not mathing. So I'm going to find this very interesting to see how it all plays out. Because what is that saying? You're playing with the big dogs now? I think the federal government will allow things because of how much you've bought them and what you bought them for a certain period of time. But if the snake then turns around and bites them on the hand, kind of wonder what the response is going to be, right? Are we going to continue to allow this in 2024 to continue to be slipped underneath the rug and ignored by the major politicians? I mean, we're coming on a new political election year. Not once. I've been a politician watcher since I was, circa about 15 years old, has ever mentioned during any of these debates, especially debates hosted in Massachusetts, anything in regards to places like the JRC, nor have they ever made disability rights a priority. None of them. Republican or Democrat, it has never happened. The few times we are mentioned, it's like a buy note. Oh, yeah, things will get better for them too. Could this actually institute a real change? Will the federal government finally say it's had enough of JRC's shit and no amount of dollars that it can throw in general politicians' war chests is going to be enough to keep the federal government quiet this time? It's going to be interesting, won't it? I know, Cement Shoes, what do you think? Do you think they overstepped their bounds? Think maybe there might be some change? I'm too much of a nihilist. I expect the worst and hope for the best. It's probably why I never done things by the seam of my pants except a few occasions, which has always backfired. But that's kind of my the way it's been for me for like the last decade with the JRC, hoping against hope to have it dashed and dashed and dashed because we are dealing with some of the most corrupt fuckers on the face of the earth. Cement shoes. I think they're going to get squashed like bugs. The only way I see that JRC gets away with it again is if they have something on someone inside the FDA, which wouldn't surprise me. These are shady fuckers. I mean, granted, I watched the AH versus JD trial. That is some like insane shady shit that went on in the background behind moving parties that were not those two. But nothing for me has topped the JRC. Nothing. It is next level corruption. They bit off more than they can chew. I would like to hope so, but I can't silence that little voice in the back of my head that feels like the JRC wouldn't have made this move if they didn't think they could win. JRC can be highly litigious, and there are some times when they rather refrain from being in the spotlight. In situations where they come in with guns blazing, it's usually because they have some kind of ace in their hands. Usually, that ace is knowing people who know people. So it's going to be a situation where will the federal government finally clap down on this and end this insane, barbaric institution that continues on with its torture unwatched and uncared for by mainstream media, as it has been for over 4 decades now? Are they going to have some ace in the hole, something they may have on somebody within the FDA or someone surrounding the situation that will help them pull it out in the end? Or will this be a situation where the government finally is forced to put their foot down? Will there ever be a line in the sand? You know? I know that's kind of negative, me sitting there thinking, but they wouldn't make this step if they weren't 100% sure. But part of it is I've watched these fuckers for 2 decades now. Literally, we're working on almost 20 years. Yes, they are a litigious institution, but they never go in guns blazing. Usually, they only respond to civil lawsuits unless they feel that they've got an ace, unless they are absolutely 100% sure they can win. I hope not. I hope even if they do have something on someone, that one person would decide to rather let whatever the JRC has on them out and still do the right thing in the end and stop the torture of these kids whose only sin was being born with a disability, that this horror show can come to an end. I hope. But what I'm prepared for, well, what am I always prepared for? War. They're my white whale for a reason. Kind of like ACAB, they always escape somehow. I really hope it was finally their pride and overconfidence that ends up tripping them up and burying them. Now, here's a side question. We already know the JRC is the whole entire damn circus. Do you think traditional media will actually pick up on this and start reporting on it again? Keep in mind the mainstream media, other than an article here and there that's easily buried in social media, has literally said just about nothing on the matter since 2012, 2013, 2014. Keep that in mind when we're talking about this. Do you think that they will actually pick this story up and begin reporting and exposing these bastards the way it should have been done years ago? With organizations like the JRC, when it comes to exposing them, you can't just expose it in one situation and then take the boot off their neck. Places like the JRC literally survive on people forgetting about their existence and the things that they're guilty of. They had intense scrutiny for all of 5 minutes in technical terms before everybody abandoned the story and everything went back to business as usual. In spite of the fact that everything was still continuing to go on just the same as it had when Andre McCollins was shocked over 31 times on a 4-point board just below the lethal limit back in 2002. That shit didn't go away. It's still happening every single day. Those kids are still being tortured, tied on all fours with a visual deprivation helmet on. Andre McCollins was face down when they were shocking him like that. They're still sleep depriving them. They're still food depriving them. They're still engaging in those bizarre behavioral rehearsal lessons where they'll jump them in the halls. But nothing out of the mainstream news since years and years ago when the Andre McCollins suit was going on. Nary a peep, but here and there, maybe from local stations. With them going after a federal arm, if you will, of the government regards to Food and Drug Administration and regulations. Do you think this could possibly garner at least the smallest bit of media attention? What do you think? I'm just keeping an eye on you, Seaman Shoes here. I mean, brain is still blown, by the way, to have the hubris to literally decide you're going to sue the Federal Food and Drug Administration. I don't know. Sometimes days like this, I feel really old. I know I don't look old. I had my family remind me of that all during Christmas. But when you've been fighting this particular battle as long as I have, go into 2020 thinking, finally, we would be able to start slowly burying the JRC the way they should have been a long time ago. to only have the DC Circuit Court overturn it in 2021. And we went from even the small regulations that we had, such as no new students being put on the torture device, even that was removed. So no more new students are getting put on the damn torture machine. I just, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? What's even more interesting and what makes me cynical is where we got this particular news was not from a major media outlet. This was passed on to me from the other members of the Stop the Shocks community that we've built over the last 30 years, coming from a local source. Cement shoes. They're going to dig their own grave messing with the feds and trying to pass the blame. That's what I think. I hope to God you're right. I hope for once in my damn life I'm wrong about something. Wow, that sounded arrogant. That did not come out right. Sorry. I mean, in regards to this, I hope I'm finally wrong about something. That maybe I'm so jaded that I don't see where a final potential and final win against the JRC can be had. I do think they're going to start pissing off the wrong people. Optimistically, but nihilistically looking at the situation, they still may get away with it, but it might start turning people against them. They can fight it and win. Remember, there are a lot of politicians that owe those bastards favors. They could potentially win, but I do think that would be the end of a lot of the political alliances that they've built. It's one thing to continue your insane shit behind closed doors, but when you're starting to drag federal departments out, that might be taking a step too far. They could beat the FDA, but in the process, it could start costing them their alliances. Realistically speaking, the way you break the JRC's stranglehold is to dismantle those alliances that have kept them in business for so damn long. It's exposing them to the point that even their yay sayers, not their nay, but their yay sayers, have to start finally paying attention. Cement shoes. The feds have way more clout to stampede all over them. I would hope. Here's why I'm slightly skeptical. Because the FDA got so afraid of their own shadow, they were willing to change over from naming the GED device specifically in regards to the ban to using that more vague terminology, which is how we ended up with the overturn in the first place. If enough pressure was put on the goddamn FDA that they backpedaled to the point that they shot their own selves in the foot, can I trust that they're going to fight this to their full capacity, or are they going to try to settle out of court? Yeah, I know. I'm the Debbie Downer. I hate to be Debbie Downer, but In my defense, having fought this as long as I have and seen them pull off the impossible time and again to protect their own barbaric acts, and the way that I saw them lead the FDA by the nose in their appeals to the DC Circuit Court, ah, I would love to have my eternal skepticism be rubbed in my face and be told I'm wrong. That's all I'm saying. If ever I wanted to be wrong about something in regards to political as well as disability rights, this is one area I hope to God I am proven wrong in. I do think the JRC has finally shot themselves in the foot. Because even if they win this, even if they are able to somehow muscle the FDA into some kind of out of court settlement, I think it will cause disquiet among the politicians who've been quietly hiding their acts from general public. I think it will finally shake their rock solid alliances that they've used to stay in business this long. Politicians, more than anything, tend to be selfish bastards. Their number one priority is to hold on to power and self preservation. If the JRC is allowed to lead a department like the FDA around by the nose, I feel like the politicians who I trust to act within their own best interest will be willing enough to throw the JRC underneath the bus to hold on to their own power. That's my hope. That's how far gone my hope is, that I am not so much depending on the system working the way that it's supposed to and the way we're all told since kids, but hoping that the JRC overstepping their bounds will finally shake these politicians enough to throw them under the bus in the name of self-preservation. I don't know, Cement Shoes. Am I too nihilist for my own good? Maybe I've been doing this shit for too long. I have been doing it for years. I've watched for years the JRC continue to get away with crap. To have a loss only to have it overturned. God damn it, I knew I was in good company. To change the subject a little bit, I don't think nihilists deserve the rap that we get. Debbie Downers, negative Nancy's. You know what? Nihilists see the world as it is. None of us have rose colored glasses on. We're not necessarily optimists because we seem to have this weird way of understanding how the world actually works. Nihilists don't say all is lost anyway, so don't even try. If that were true, I wouldn't have been fighting the JRC for almost 2 decades now. A nihilist will see the world as it is, and they will learn how to work within the frame of the system. Know what I mean? If you're an optimist, you think being the loudest voice out on the town square is going to get you somewhere. All it does is get you attention. None of the people in power are even actually paying attention. Being a nihilist is understanding sometimes, particularly when you're autistic, and this somehow is a weird area that becomes your expertise. Never saw that come in my teenage years. But you learn how to work within the frame that they've already set, almost kind of working in the shadows, as it were, is essentially using the system they built against them, playing by the rules they set into motion. So, what does that mean? Why do I think nihilists get a bad rep? Because, folks, at the end of the day, that's how shit gets done. Okay? When you know how the game is played. You get what I'm saying, right? I'm a literalist as well as a nihilist. I know if things play a certain way, they could work because I've already done it before. Not through any like delusional side of optimism, but through logic, through reasoning, from seeing the world how it is, and therefore finding ways to help the world change instead of just wishing for it, if that makes sense. We're not the negative Nancy's we're made out to be, is all I'm saying. We're just realists. And although a lot of us, because we are nihilists and realists, we don't even necessarily bother because we don't see the point. There are a few of us nihilists who are more like myself. We see the world for how it is, we see how it works. We learn their game, as it were. And boy, aren't they shocked when we start playing by their rules that they set. Because I've gotten positive things done. Many people in the neurodivergent rights groups who didn't even start out as nihilists, who did start out as idealists, who came more to this side of things as we've continued this fight for some people almost 4 decades. It is slow work. It doesn't happen instantly. Nothing in the service system, by the way, folks, should you come across this channel at any point in time, ever gets done instantly. I've been dealing with state, local, national, and otherwise for a good long while now. Nothing happens instantly. It's a lot of work, a little move here, a little move there. Nothing's instantaneous. For God's sake, just to get the Department of Autism Services to be a department within my own state government to actually exist took the advocacy of both parents and self advocates an entire decade just to finally get the ribbon panel hearing to even happen. When you're dealing with the government, you are moving literally slower than a snail. Literally slower than a snail. I guess that's where my small amount of optimism happens to be because I know how the game is played, because I know the rules. I'm going to use those rules against them. And that's where Employment First Initiative first got brought into our state, the vocational rehabilitation pilot program for neurodivergent kids in transition age. It took me 4 years. 4 years. with a group of politicians, local mind you, but politicians, school boards. Yeah. Now, I'm not belittling any protests out in the streets. That does bring necessary awareness to fucked up situations. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that it doesn't. I'm just saying, in my experience, where things begin to change is when they realize that they're not dealing with a naive child. Someone who can, does, and will play the game and have no fucks left to give. But I'm getting off topic. Sorry. We get a bad rap. We're not the dark clouds. We're reality seers. And we operate accordingly. Some will not bother with politics the way that I have and others have. Some of us do. But I do think some of my success has come because I am a nihilist and I did see things for how they were. And therefore I operated accordingly. I don't know. My brother has called it like idealistic nihilism. I guess that would be a good word to define me. I'm kind of an oxymoron. I'm an idealistic nihilist. Cement Shoes has another comment. They wish they could do what they do to those kids to anyone who opposes them. You know they do. You know they do. Ever notice that they tend to have a hard on against those of us advocates and advocacy groups that have been going up against them for years? The dismissive, ableist terminology they do to label us. If the JRC had their way, there would be a fucker at my door right now with a court order to grab my ass and send me to their hellhole. All because I had the balls to call them out. In fact, they would do that with every single self-advocate, even parental organizations that have come out against them. I do not doubt that for a minute. I think it pisses them off to no end that those of us who are neurodivergent, like the kids in their schools, dared to be uppity enough to take on their so-called bizarre-ass treatment behavioral program. You know? It's one of those things where I think they're like, well, those people just need to learn their place. Then there's people like me. Yeah, I know my place, JRC. It's with my boot on your neck. That's my place. Just saying. But yeah. And you ever notice they continuously go after people like me? You notice they don't have the balls to go after ARC or Easter seals or even really the UN. It's always us they attack every time. And it is us that they used in regards to other parents to say, see, they're just a bunch of brain damaged children. They don't know what's good for them. I've seen it. I've seen it. Cement shoes. Those channels that cover cartel videos have started doing videos on the JRC, so everyone will see how bad they are if they're being compared to CJ and G. Jesus, you know it's bad when you literally have people who cover the fucking cartels. And even they, as much horrific crap they've seen, I'm glad to see it though. I've always said about this channel, I know it's not big, it's never going to be. I'm never going to make a living off this channel. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles. You'll hear me clear my throat, blow my nose, hawk up half a lung on some of my videos. But I don't need to have like major coverage of my YouTube channel. If I can turn one person onto this topic and that person turns another person, and we get a situation like you're talking about here, where you got more people covering the topic, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. It's not about me. It's about them. It's about the survivors. It's about getting those kids who are stuck in the hellhole the hell out and making sure not another disabled kid or a kid with mental health issues ever have to be fear being sent to that hellhole ever again. That's what it's about. Screw me. I'm nobody. They are what matter. I saw that from the shrouded hand. I actually went and shared that on pretty much all my social media. I did send that video out, Cement Shoes. Thank you for letting me know about that. I sent that out to the larger neurodiverse community. I sent it out on the larger Twitter. Didn't quite get the response that I wanted, but doesn't surprise me any. But yes, more people are beginning to cover it. It is starting to get exposure, literally in spite of mainstream media. That is one thing. If I could think out of that whole horrific mess, poor JD, Jesus Christ, poor dude. Even now they will hound them. But one of the positive things, yes, a nihilist said the word positive. Please hold your shock. Is the people are beginning to mistrust and question the mainstream media in a way that they really haven't before. I mean, technically, even in the 90s, we all knew mainstream media was bullshit. There was a reason why the anti PC movement was very, very strong within my generation in particular. But never before have we had a situation where people aren't just going along 100% with what mainstream media is saying. They are going to other media outlets. They may heard from my video, maybe they heard it from ASAN, or they've heard it from Shrouded Hand, or they've heard it from these opponents to Autism Speaks, or from Lyric, or Ari, all these people, many of them I've worked with for years. It's getting more traction now because mainstream media has been basically shown to be incompetent and have their own agenda. It's not these folks who no longer can look at things objectively. And now that the JD versus AH case made that glaringly clear that there is an agenda they're pushing, it really has opened eyes on broader subjects like the JRC. And people are questioning, why is stuff like this not being covered? Why is the atrocities that went on at Agape boarding school not covered? Why is all the child trafficking and child abuse and child porn that is being found in these evangelical schools not being posted all over the news all day, every day? It's brought up questions, which I was very happy to see. If I could see one positive thing other than the obviously finally one of us neurodivergents fucking won over our abusers, I will celebrate that shit until I'm senile. But one of the other positive lights is people are starting to question things. Sorry, my camera is making my glasses look tilted, but they're actually not. It just kind of looks weird. Yep. Cement shoes again. They probably thought it was just gore and didn't really look at the topic. A lot of people do. They skate past disability rights like they're not even there. In fact, in 2016, I remember because as usual I was there, when those of us who were talking about the JRC in 2016 were literally told on social media to shut our mouths, it was not our term. And that was in regards to what was going on because they wanted all eyes on Ferguson. And sure, rightfully so. But my question, and the question of many people who were like me, that got us shut, what people tried to shut us down with, when we talked about the JRC and the abuses of the disabled and the elderly and those with mental health issues, and we were loudly told that it wasn't our turn yet. And I got myself in trouble because I said, and I put it exactly like this, then when the fuck is it going to be our turn? Disabled people are being murdered in their homes by their significant others, their caretakers, their parents, every single day. They're getting sent to hellscapes like Agape and the Judge Rotenberg Center and tortured within an inch of their lives every single day, and nobody says shit. So when is it going to be our turn? How long do we have to continue to wait? How many of us have to die before we start to fucking matter? And I got shut down hard. I understand why. That was probably not the time or the place, and as an autistic, I'm not always the best judge of that on the planet. I have an understanding of it, but at the same time, I'm just sitting here going, well, God damn it, when will it be time? You know? Oh, well, I probably got myself reported. Whatever. I'm used to it. The point is, we blow up some subjects of discrimination and racism, and we cover them within an inch of their lives. And we absolutely freaking should. We should. 100% should be showing all of this horrific crap. But why, at the same time that we're exposing the ugly parts of society, are we also not telling the tales of the discrimination, the brutality, the murder, the torture, and the things that have happened to disabled people with impunity, why is that given such little coverage? I don't know, maybe food for thought. I do know it makes me stay up sometimes at night. I can torture myself sometimes thinking about all the kids because I receive them. I get the reports from multiple sources of kids being horrifically beaten in schools, kids being forgotten behind locked doors in isolation rooms, stories of a cop father who, after hosing down his son in the middle of winter, forced him and his brother into a frozen garage where they died. You see what I mean, right? But where do you hear these stories? From me, from ASAN, from the disability report. This is why one of the few areas where you could say I am an idealist is the advent, the rise of the YouTube creators. That no matter how much mainstream media tries to bash, it just gets larger every single second of every day. Because now we can finally tackle and get an audience for the topics that the mainstream media has continued to ignore for years. They can't control narratives anymore. They can't just ignore a certain section of the public anymore. That's one of the few areas where I've actually had genuine hope and have watched it with quite a bit of astonishment seeing it come to fruition. I didn't think that was going to happen in the early 2000s. See, I can see the bright side of things sometimes. It's been the creators. It's been Shrouded Hand. It's been these people who've covered all these other cases, cartels, drug cases, that are slowly getting turned on to this. And finally, after all these years of being told to hurry up and wait, we're finally, slowly starting to get the full story told. And for all those creators who probably never seen this channel, but to all those creators who are taking the time, like the Shrouded Hand, to do the research, to use Lydia Brown's Autistic Hoya's massive archive and giving that girl the props she deserves for everything she has archived and using it to bring awareness to what's still going on in literally 2024. My heart goes out to you. I'm deeply grateful. Especially when larger channels like Shrouded Hand, or earlier when Stevie, bless his heart. Thank you, Stevie. It meant a great deal to me because I asked him to report on Jennifer Masumba and those blog posts, and he put them out on his channel, where a larger audience than what I can draw in was able to see what was going on. That was incredibly, I'm extremely grateful. That, fine, it hit me in the feels, all right? He's good people. If you've not watched Stevie, if you're from the neurodiverse community, please go to his channel, Stevie J. Raw. Look him up. You could just type his name. His channel will pop up in YouTube. He covers quite a few things, and he has an enormous heart. Les too. If it weren't for Les after that DC Circuit Court overturn, yeah, I love that woman. Thank you, Les. Truly. And their encouragement. Sorry, I got off topic, cement shoes. I do that on occasion, but all right, we're getting about an hour in, and I did do this early, which is probably why none of our regulars came on here, but I did want to get it done and kind of enjoy the rest of my weekend. So to kind of close it all out, folks, the new news, if you're just catching the tail end of this, is JRC has had the balls to try to sue the FDA. And as of right now is still going through all the motions of the lawsuit. I have not heard any rumors yet about any countermeasures that the FDA has taken in regards to the threat of this lawsuit. I will keep my ear to the ground and try to keep everybody as informed as humanly possible. I want to thank you, Cement Shoes, for also having your ear to the ground and bringing to my attention these other creators who are starting to report on what's going on at the JRC, since the major media outlets continue to refuse to do so. I want to thank all of my regular audience who, granted, are not here today, but in their defense, folks, I did come on here particularly early today. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone. We're going to go ahead and sign off. If you're just popping in, just catch us on the replay. Again, Cement Shoes, thank you for coming. Your comments. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I will see you after the Tuesday after this one. Bye-bye, everyone.